Or Bane. A Bane dong. That horrors of addiction.
We've all heard stories about addiction, but sometimes a single story can cut through all the noise. This is one of those stories. This is about Tony, a man I met, a man I knew, and the terrifying journey I witnessed him take into the grip of crack cocaine. What happens when a person you know, someone cool and collected, transforms into a stranger before your eyes? What kind of decisions do they make when control is no longer an option? This is the first segment in my series, The Horrors of Addiction, and it begins with Tony. Tony and I met in treatment. We shared a common goal, a desire to get clean. He was sharp, easy to talk to, and in all respects, he was cool. Later, we reconnected on the streets. He was in a three-quarter house, and I, regrettably, was still caught in my active addiction. It wasn't long before our paths crossed in a different way, a way that led us back into using together. This is where the Tony I knew began to disappear. When we used crack cocaine together, I watched a horrifying transformation unfold. It was almost instantaneous. The calm, collected man I knew would vanish, replaced by something completely different. He went from being cool, totally at ease, to perspiring with sweat, his skin slick and gleaming even in a cool room. His speech, once clear and articulate, became fractured. He was barely able to speak, words stumbling out, disjointed, sometimes just whispered fragments. Then came the paranoia. He'd constantly look over his shoulder, convinced someone was watching, someone was coming for him. His eyes would dart around, wide and fearful. And perhaps most terrifying, the uncontrollable impulsiveness. It was like watching him fight himself and losing. Every decision, every move, fueled by a frantic, desperate urge that superseded logic or self-preservation. It was no longer Tony in control. It was the drug. His actions were driven by a terrifying, chaotic force. The events that followed this transformation were truly undescribable. Tony's impulsiveness, driven by the drug, led him down a path that could have cost him everything. He made decisions, desperate decisions, that put his life in immediate danger. In his altered state, vulnerable and desperate, Tony encountered two individuals. What happened next was a terrifying example of how addiction strips you of your agency, making you a target. They extorted him for money. This wasn't just about losing money. This was about Tony facing a situation where his life was on the line. He was exposed, alone, and completely at the mercy of others, all because of the grip crack cocaine had on him. Witnessing that, knowing the person he was, and seeing what he had become and what he endured, it was a stark, horrifying realization of the true cost of this addiction.
Hey guys, so you just watched a short video on an individual named Tony. Tony, story isn't just about Tony's story in general. It's a mirror. And it shows the devastating power of crack cocaine and how it can twist a person, erase their identity, and push them into unimaginable dangers. This just doesn't happen on a one-time, one-base scale. During the act of addiction, this happens consistently. You consistently are placed in dangerous scenarios and situations every time we decide to use. Unfortunately for the person using, it becomes second nature to be involved in situations like that. Tony, very, very promising individual. Just a regular guy, regular things going on. But the psychological damage that involves addiction, the impulsiveness, the decision making, all can ultimately cost you an individual their life. And so, what do we do from here? How do we go? Only thing I could suggest, if you are someone you know is struggling, understand that this is especially in addiction, a reality. The paranoia, the impulsiveness, absolute loss of control. These aren't just symptoms; they're direct pathways, and have terrifying consequences to what can happen to an individual out there. So it's always good to be aware of these things that take place, whether you're in active addiction or whether you're not. You know, this is why I'm sharing the horrors of addiction, to shed light on these dark corners, to show the raw truth. And hopefully prevent others from walking down the same path Tony did. I mean, you know, that's the only purpose of me sharing this video, not to make fun or to highlight war stories, but to just shed light, man, get the message across the best way I can. Thank you for watching. You guys can stay tuned to my Let's Talk channel with more content involving recovery, and also spiritual values, cognitive behavioral therapy, and also just general conversation. But for now, we're focused on the recovery process. Please like, comment, and share. Subscribe if you found this impactful. Once again, my YouTube channel is Let's Talk. It's Grateful Lamar. I'm sure you can type that in the search bar and come on over to YouTube and check me out, man. I still love y'all on TikTok, but come over to YouTube. Peace and blessings.